Hello, all. Welcome to this next episode of Business Center. In the last video, we talked about how you subscribe the event, how you find your events that are available in the apps that you're dependent on. And there was an interesting comment on that video is thank you for the video. I have a question that how you can write AL events in your custom code. Now, I took some time. I was thinking about it, what is the right way to kind of explain it. And in this video, consider this as part one. I'll only release part two if you guys want it. So let me know into the comments after watching this video that do you need part two or not. And later in the video, we'll understand what part two will cover. So in this particular video, we'll talk about two major categories of events that you have. One is called as business event and another is called as integration event. Now, there might be a little bit confusion about what these two different categories are, and we'll understand in detail starting from Microsoft documentation and then by writing those kind of events and to understand what is the difference and how you should be writing it. I'll be sharing what is my approach while I'm thinking of writing an event and what are different patterns that you see, like is handled that you see and other things, right? So stay here and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so let's first talk about what is the difference between business event and integration event, because there is a very slight difference between those and you don't have to worry about it. So let me open Microsoft documentation and here it is. Don't worry, the link of this will be available in the pinned comment and the first and the description of this particular video. So business event is a custom event that is raised by AL code. It defines a formal contract that carries an implicit promise not to change in future release. It's the expectation that business events are published by ISVs, including Microsoft. So if you are planning to build an app for app source where other developers or other PDEs can take dependency on your app, then you should be writing events. And we'll understand why we should be writing events in this particular video. Now, the key in this particular line or description is it defines a formal contract that carries an implicit promise not to change in future release. So business event, if you see them in the apps that you are taking dependency on, comes up with a contract more or less that they will not change into the future release. Whereas when you look at the integration event, an integration event is also a custom event that is raised by AL code, like a business event. So both are same, except it does not carry any such promises of not changing, and nor does it have restriction not to impose implementation detail. So both the events, either integration or the business event, are more or less same and they are written in the same way in AL code. The only thing is integration event does not come up with a promise of not to be changed into the future, and it does not have restriction not to expose implementation detail. Implementation detail means how it is written in law. So let's see. Let's take an example. So here in this particular scenario, we have built a small demo called sales purchase request. Let's assume this is an app that we have published and this app is available on app source. Now you as a developer may want some changes into this particular app, right? So currently if I say new, I can choose a sales or a purchase. Then I can choose the customer on the vendor record based on what kind of document it is. I can choose the posting date. Then I can select some items or line things into it. Let's choose resource. Now, if you look at it, there are very basic details into it right now. And because I'm the app developer, this is what I thought the business will need. Like how Base App is a app built by Microsoft, and they have built it based on how businesses process. Now, whatever the app that I'm building, I'm thinking that this is what my customer needs. And maybe this is fulfilling, let's say, 60 to 80% of how a Microsoft environment or the Cronus environment, more or less, provides approximately 80 to 90% based on what every business needs. Now, on top of it, whatever we do or you do is a PTE or a pertinent extension, which is modifying the Microsoft code in a way that it fulfills the business need of your customers. In the same way, this app has been written so that you can create a sales order or a purchase order from here, and I'm only providing you these 10 fields. At this point, user can click on create document, which will then, in this case, will create a sales order, and user will be able to navigate on that order from here. Now this is the sales order that has been created with the same items that were there, with the same quantity and with the same posting date. Now think about it that your customer is using this app and they need some additional field to be part of this process when the sales order or the purchase order being created. Maybe some details on the header, maybe some details on the line. Now, because the app cannot do it, you can surely add fields using table extensions and then show them on the page extension. But to move that data from this particular entity to the actual sales order or purchase order, you'll need some way to modify the code that is written in this particular app that I've built. And let's have a look on it. So this is the demo app, and let me zoom this in. So there is a table, which is the header table and the line table. Then there are some pages, and then there is some code to move it to sales and to move it to purchase. Now let's take an example. Now if I'm writing it for app source, I need to have a way so that other developers can have possibility to add their custom fields into it or modify the routine as they need it. So in summary, what it is doing, when somebody clicks on that button, it checks if the line exists, creates a sales header, and then if sales header is found or created, it creates a sales line, and then it updates the order number, and then it shows you a message. Now I know that a user might, or a developer or a customer will need to have something, let's say on the header level. So I need to write something so that the the user have the capacity to add additional detail into it. So somewhere here I need to write an event. In the same way, when the sales line is being created, I would like to have the possibility for them that before I'm inserting, I should have an event at this place. Okay, so how you do that? Okay, so let's try to write an event first for this area. To write an event, you can just use the built-in snippet, which is t-event, and you get two options. One is t-event buzz, which is for business event, and then t-event integration, which is the integration event. So if I choose t-event integration, it'll give me the signature from the snippet, which says, do you want to include the sender? Now, the first parameter of the integration event, which is include sender, means do you want this code unit to be passed to the subscribing code unit? Wherever the event is written, not just this code unit, in this case this is a code unit, but if it's written on a table, then do you want this particular object to be accessed from the subscribing code unit? If you pass this as true, then all the global methods in that particular object will be available to the subscribing coordinator, and we'll see all the examples. So I'll say true, and then the second one is global variable access. Now the second parameter, which is global var access, exposes all the global variables in this particular code unit or in this particular object to the subscribing object. And just for the demo, I'll add global variables. I'll let's say sample int of type integer. Okay. Now if I set this global var access to true, then this variable, which I've just written, will be accessible on the subscribing coordinator. I like what Microsoft have done here, that it is not a best practice to expose your global variable to the subscriber code unit. So as soon as you write true here, you get a warning that this is going away, and we as Microsoft suggest you not to expose global variables. This will become an error, so don't even attempt this. So by default, because this is going away, whenever I'm writing event, I'll make sure that I don't expose my global variables. If you want to see it, we can see it. Okay. So in the first event, we have said include sender as true. We have said global var access as false, and isolated. We'll talk about it in the next video because that's a completely separate parameter. Now here you need to provide the name of your event. So let's say this is on before sales header modify. This is my event name, and then I need to pass what parameters I want. So anybody who is using this particular event will surely need the target, which is sales header, and will also need the source, which is from where it is passing the value. So I'll pass sales header, which I'll need to pass as var so that it can be modified, and second I'll have to pass the source, which is this. Okay, so with this I'm saying that I'll provide you the sales header, which is the target record where you can write more details if you want, and I'm providing you the source where if you have added more fields you can still get access to it. But how it gets triggered, what you have to do is wherever we have written the event, I'll have to kind of define this and pass the variables that I need. So whenever the code execution reaches at this point, it calls this method, which then announces that I am here and is there any subscriber who would like to subscribe to this particular event, and then passes control to that particular subscriber. Now in the same way, now in this we have done true and false. Let's on the sales line, and let's write one more event, the event interrogation. This time let's do false, and let's do this true. That should not be, but just for the sake of understanding, this is true and this is false. So no global var, no including sender, but including or passing the global var access. And here I can say on before what is this, sales line insert, and then I'll pass the sales line as record of sales line, and the source, which is my sales purchase line. Now because this needs to be modified, I'll pass it as reference. In the same way as we did earlier, I'll also have to define it here and say pass my sales line and sales purchase line. With this, the control will be given to the subscriber so that it can subscribe to this event. Now you might have also seen one more thing into event subscription, and let's handle this. Now, in some scenario, we want, if they have a better way or if they want to handle it completely differently, you want them to have this possibility. So we'll write one more event here. That'll also be an integration event, or if you want to call it business event, let's do that. The event biz. Now in the business event, the parameter are include sender, which will say false. The include sender will work in the same way, and then the second is isolated, which will talk separately. This is, let's call this on before handle sales line creation. Okay, we'll pass the same set of variables here. Okay, and then you might have seen that in some of these events you see a is handled as boolean, and then this is passed as ref, and then if I find a place to place or to call this event, I'll call it somewhere here. Let's say here. Okay, here. Okay, which is this. Okay, and then I need to call this, and I need to define a variable called is handled. Now we'll understand what the is handled means. So here I define that, and in this I also define a is handled as boolean. Okay, then because I want someone to take control of it, so if somebody takes control of it, I want them to execute the whole piece of this. So then in most of these cases you will see something like this, that if it is already handled, then you exit it. That means none of my code from here, line number 41 till 56, nothing will get executed, because somebody, another developer or in a PTE situation, knows or customizing handling of this process into the way that they want it. So they reach to this point and they can actually manage this extension the way they want it, and that way this section of code will not execute. Now, as per Microsoft, whenever you define any event, these event definition are normally placed at the end of the object. Now there's no what do you call that, it doesn't matter where you place them, but I'm just trying to follow what Microsoft does in their objects. And for example, we have the business event and we have two different kind of integration event available. Now these are the three events that are exposed in this particular code unit, so that it gives control to user or to the developer wherever they want to add their custom piece into it. So at this point they can control before the sales header gets modified. In this event they can control how they want to handle the whole sales line creation, and if they don't want to use this, they also have this, that they can just subscribe to it and handle it. Now we have all these different scenarios defined here. We have two integration event, one with including sender, one without including sender but passing the global var, and let's define one more, sample int 2. Okay, so we are good here. So let me try to build this app. This got created. Let me reveal this, copy this, and go to my other app, which is in subscriber app, and place it as a dependency here. Now coming to my subscriber app, where I already have mentioned that I'm dependent on the demo app with whatever version and whatever the IDs are. So now I can take dependency on that particular code unit, or I can subscribe to the events that are written on that particular event. Now let's see how these different parameters plays a different role into it. So let's see. If I do a t event sub, I can do the code unit, and then I need to know the code unit. So let me see. This code unit is called EDC sales management. So I can come here and try to look for the event on this code unit. Okay. And then I need to look for the event. So the first one that I see is on header.modify. Let's do that, and we'll do all three. I'll just copy paste this to see how these three are different. On this one, I'll do a sales line insert, and just to fix the compilation error, I'm just removing these. And third but not last is this. Okay. So on the first one, which is on before sales header modify, when I look in here that what are the available parameters for me, what I can see is the sales header, which is the target record, the sales purchase header, which is my source record, and last but not least, which I did not expose or define in the parameters, but because I have said include sender true, I see a sender parameter which is referring to this particular object where this event is defined. Now we know how these two works, but let's look at the sender. So when I click on when I type sender, what I see is I can access all the global methods in that particular code unit. Now if you pay attention to this particular code unit, that is that there is only one global procedure, everything else is set to local. So only one global function, and that I can just directly trigger by referring to the sender if your event is exposing include sender parameter. Hopefully the include sender is clear with this example. Now let's look at the other one. Here I can see my sales line, which is my target. I can also see my sales purchase line, and additionally I can see both the global variables because I have defined that I'm going to expose them by using GlobalVarAccess, which you should not be doing because as we saw, the GlobalVarAccess is going away and this will become an error message. And in any case, exposing or passing out GlobalVarAccess I don't think is ever a good practice. I think all your objects should have everything local, so it's more easier, but that's a different discussion altogether. So if you do GlobalVarAccess, this is how you can kind of access the global variable of the event code unit where the event is, or the object where the event is accessible on your subscriber code unit. Last but not least, this is a event where I have an is handled pattern. So what you see here is you see the sales line purchase, sales line, and this, and then you also see a is handled. Now there are different school of thoughts of how you need to use the is handled pattern, and before I talk about it, let's quickly have a look how the whole event subscription process works. So you subscribe to an event, which is calling an event, and as soon as you subscribe the event, it fetches all the subscriber of that particular event. So when your code is moving on the code that you have written, and when it reaches to the line where you have invoked your event, it fetches all the event subscriber that are there if there are any, and if it finds any subscriber, then it invokes the event subscriber. At that point, the control is given to the event subscriber. If there is no error, the whole code is executed on the subscriber and it goes back and fetches the next and follows the cycle. You can have 5 different subscribers to the same event in different apps. that are subscribing to the same event. And then if there is an error message, it rollbacks the transaction and you get back to the point even if your event subscriber have the error message. But if you don't have the error message, it goes and fetches the next event subscriber. Now, keeping this in mind, coming back here, when you have a is handled pattern, and if there are multiple subscribers to this particular event, and assume that everybody is trying to handle it their way, what is the right way to do it? Now, as I said in the beginning, that there are two major thoughts that I've heard around it, and you can let me know which one you knew or which is the right one. One is, as soon as you subscribe the event, the first thing that you do is you say, if it's already handled, then exit. Then I'm assuming that this, if any other subscriber from any apps that my customer is using have already handled this, I don't want to handle it. That is one thought of the practice. The other thought is, I don't care about it, I'll still handle it. But now remember that every time that you try to handle it, the last code that handles it will be considered as handled until unless they are not doing completely different thing, which is rare or impossible. And the sequence is unknown. The sequence is completely unknown of how these subscriber will be triggered in what order. So I think this is the fairest way of using an event who is exposing an is handled pattern. Because if some other app have already handled that event, then that particular process of the code, then you don't want to handle it your way. You might have custom scenarios, and that's a completely different discussion altogether. But while thinking about base Microsoft app, and let's say there are two ISVs and then you also have a custom, and if they are already handling it, you might want to figure out a better way to achieve your custom than trying to re-handle it, because that might override what they have handled. So these are the two major differences between the business event and the integration event, and how subscriber works. As I have used the subscriber word a lot of time, hit that icon if you haven't subscribed to the channel, and do subscribe to the channel, because that helps YouTube to understand how well we are doing. Are we helping the community or not? So if you think we are helping, please do subscribe to the channel. At this point, one simple request: if you want to know about that isolated part, and then there is one more event type, do let me know into the comments, and I'll be happy to post a part 2 of this particular video. If you have any queries, questions, or confusion, drop them into the comment box. At this point, you know the drill. If you like the content, hit the like button. If you think this is useful and others will get benefit out of it, do share it on your social media accounts with your friends and colleagues. And if you haven't, as I said, subscribe to the channel, because that's how we know how many subscribers our event have on YouTube. And if you don't know, we have started a new business selling practice in India called IncludeSender Consulting, and we'll be happy to partner with any customer or partners around the globe. Reach out to us for any business queries using info@IncludeConsulting.com, and we'll be happy to help you. I'll see you sooner than later into the next video. Till then, keep learning and keep sharing whatever you're learning. Thank you, and have a nice day.